que coisa mais linda, mais cheia de graça. Ela, menina que vem, que passa, num doce balanço, caminho do mar. Moça do corpo dourado do sol de Ipanema, o seu balançado é mais que um poema. É a coisa mais linda que eu já vi passar. Ah, porque estou tão sozinho. Ah, porque tudo é tão triste. Ah, a beleza que existe, a beleza que não é só minha, que também passa sozinha. Ah, se ela soubesse que quando ela passa, o mundo sorrindo se enche de graça e fica mais lindo por causa do amor.
Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, each one she passes goes ah. When she walks, she's like a samba that swings so cool and sways so gently, that when she passes, each one she passes goes ah. Oh, but he watched her so sadly. How can he tell her he loves her? Yes, he would give his heart gladly. But each day when she walks to the sea, she looks straight ahead, not at him. Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, he smiles, but she doesn't see.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to another live stream. Here we are once again. This week's bottle is the Glenlivet Founders Reserve, a Speyside single malt Scotch whisky that celebrates the very act of beginning something bold, because Speyside is the heartland of single malt. Same ingredients, same rivers, different hands, different results. A Founders Reserve is basically a reminder that at some point someone just said, let's try this. No guarantees, no permission, just to start. And it's a very, very reasonable tipple. Cheers. Let's begin. So this live stream, Drift and Drop, which is the working title at the moment, isn't a podcast or not really an interview show either. It's just a place to slow down things a little bit. Music, drink, conversation, no rush, no angles, no trying to get anywhere. Things drift and sometimes things land, and that's it. So here's how tonight is going to go. The opening dram has already happened. I'll share a few thoughts, then we'll drop into some more music. After that, we're going to sit down with my mum, Margi Clarke, for a proper chat. And then we'll open it up to a few questions from you. See what you want to ask her about what she talks about. Then we'll take another music break. Then I've got a little bit third section, and then we can do more questions. With one last dram, we'll close the night. Cool. So let's just see what we have going for us tonight. I'd like to welcome everyone who joined the live stream. It was a little bit last minute. I was meant to put it up last week, but that's something that slipped my attention. So I've been thinking about how to present this live stream, seeing that it's with my mum and what we were going to talk about. I was thinking about some things about they only really happen by people who don't realize they're not supposed to. Not because they're brave, but because they just do it. They just start. And once they start, something has to happen. Just the act of beginning opens up a whole array of other options and other choices. Because a lot of us are kind of told to know our place, know our station. Don't be getting ideas above who you are. But to others, that's just a challenge. It's a challenge to find out who we are, what we're made of. And we don't let anybody stop us in achieving our goals and ambitions. Because most limitations, they're just learned. That's not something we're born with. It's something we pick up from the people around us. Our parents, our role models, ourselves. And they can hold us back in life. And I guess what this live stream will be about is about how when you've got an idea, even when all the odds are stacked against you, is to just get out there and do it. In some ways, this live stream was a little bit like this. So I was only contemplating doing it maybe 6 weeks ago, but again, chatting to my mum, she went, just do it. And I did. And, you know, it's a case of having to learn on the job. And they say sometimes that it takes 100 goes before you really get to master anything. So the quicker you get those 100 goes under your belt, the quicker you can master the thing that you want to do. And you have to just put to one side all the things that you think will hold you back and why you shouldn't do it. You don't need permission. You don't need backing. You don't need any guarantees, which is what we're going to find out in a short while. You don't even need the whole plan. You just need an idea and balls big enough to carry it out. Just the first move can be enough, and then you can figure out the next move once you're in that position. Because you can over-prepare. And that can be a big hindrance in and of itself. Analysis paralysis. Making the first move can lead to slings and arrows being thrown your way. But sometimes it's those slings and arrows that you learn the most from. Because that's what I was thinking about. It's about how do I approach this live stream. And that was it. Most things that matter start small and look crazy to everybody else. So I'd like to hear from you guys that managed to tune in. We didn't do any promotion for this because, again, it was down to the fact that we just want to do some live streams and have some fun without the whole promotion thing. And maybe we'll do that further down the line. For now, it was just about showing up and being consistent, about trying to do a live stream every week or doing something every week without fail. And that's half the battle. 50% about winning anything is just showing up. Because a lot of the times, your greatest victories will come from the fact that the other side just quits before you do, without you having to take any kind of special moves in the first place. Anyway, that feels like a good place to pause, put some more music on, have another sip of single malt. And when we come back, I'll be joined by my mum and we'll have a proper chat. So we'll look forward to that.
Quiet nights of quiet stars, quiet chords from my guitar, floating on the silence that surrounds us. Quiet thoughts and quiet dreams, quiet walks by quiet streams, and a window that looks out on Corcovado. Oh, how lovely.
Esse amor, uma canção pra fazer feliz a quem se ama. Muita calma pra pensar e ter tempo pra sonhar. Da janela ver seu corcovado, o Redentor, que lindo. Quero a vida sempre assim, com você perto de mim, até o apagar da velha chama. E eu que era triste, descrente desse mundo, ao encontrar você eu conheci o que é felicidade, meu amor. quero a vida sempre assim, com você perto de mim, até o apagar da velha chama. E eu que era triste, descrente desse mundo, ao encontrar você eu conheci o que é felicidade, meu amor.
Holy shit. Is that better? Thumbs up. Okay, is that better? Okay. Right, okay, right. So there we go. I think we have sound. So, I'll start again.
Yeah.
It's an honour and a privilege to host my mum in Algarve. She's visited us for Christmas for 3 weeks, staying with me in my apartment to visit me, Donnie, Joe, and my dad. I'm going to spend 3 weeks with us. And my mum has been trying to get on my podcast for a while. But it wasn't the right podcast. It wasn't the right time. But this is, because it's laid back, it's relaxed. It's a bit of a chill. And it was your idea for me to do it, so I thought that was even better. I thought, well, where are we going to begin this conversation? What's our angle in? How are we going to break this chat? And I thought, well, it has to begin with the idea of working class people from Kirby in the 1980s deciding that they wanted to do the thing that nobody thought they could do, that everybody told them they haven't got a chance in hell of doing, which was to make a movie. And what a movie that was. It was groundbreaking at its time. And I thought, well, that could be, a good place for us to begin a conversation, to chat. Because that whole idea of just do it, thankfully, has passed down to me, and hopefully it'll pass down to Donnie. And not only that, my mum has just completed a documentary about the making of Leslie Brezhnev in the 1985, I think it was, 86. And that just screened in Kirby.
In September.
Right? Yeah. So I thought that would be a good thing to talk about. So tell us, Mum, a little bit about, how that all began, the genesis of the project. And
the genesis of the project was, two things triggered me. One of them was watching Bette Davis in Baby Jane Hudson. And Who's Afraid of Baby Jane? Anyway, that inspired me for the tune, because she's actually singing in that film, I'm sending a letter to Daddy. That stayed in my head. And then one evening, it was Friday evening, and I was watching Granada Reports. And at that time, in the early 80s, no one had a job. it was still a hangover from the 70s and that terrible depression we all went through. And there was an item on Gurnard's report, and it was about this miner in St. Helens, and they just closed the mines, you know, hundreds of years worth of mining, all gone. And the man took his redundancy money and he built a nuclear fallout shelter in his back garden. And that really made me laugh. I thought, oh God, what a crazy thing to do with your redundancy money. And then Caroline Duffy, who was a friend of mine, and Adrian Henry.
But she became the poet laureate, didn't she,
Yeah,
Caroline Duffy?
poet laureate, was an amazing character, very, very bright. They used to test the krypton factor on her head. She was that bright. And anyway, we were in her house and we used to go there and we'd raid Adrian Henry's wine cellar. And he had top wines. He was really into his, you know, his booze and cheese. And anyway, I came up with that idea there. I come up with this idea about some girl who writes a letter to Brezhnev, and he's got a punky daughter, and the punky daughter says, why don't you get her over here? So that's where it started. I then went over to Alan Gill, and I wrote the title song, which you hear at the end of the film in the credits.
But Alan Gill's the guy who did the score for the movie, isn't he? He made the music.
Yeah, and he did, he was in Dalek Idol, Teardrop Explodes. He wrote all their hits. He's so gifted, very, very sensitive musician and humble, really plays it all right down, didn't want to be famous. And so anyway, I wrote that song with him. And then I got off to Paris with Jamie Reid. And so I went away to Paris and we were looking for the main chance there. All kinds of terrible things were happening to us, you know, like one day we'd be dining with the top tier of society, John Charles Castle Baljak, top designer. The next day we'd be starving to death.
Yeah, but you're a pop star in Paris. Didn't you have like a song in the charts in Paris?
I went over to Paris and I sung in French, and that was my big thing. You see, because I was a Scouser, and we all know how much the class system works in your mouth. Yeah, you know, your accent, we can instantly say, oh, they're from there. No matter how you dressed. Yeah, you could be dressed in Chanel or whatever you think is fab from head to foot. But it's your accent to sound.
Well, you could get away with that in Paris because no one knew what a Scouser was.
They were buying it, yeah. And Jamie Reid, he chatted up all the girls at the record studios. And it was a fantastic time. But it was rough. We were going from the sublime to the ridiculous. And then one day, our Frank got in touch with me and he said, look, Margie, he said, come home. He said, your name's Margi Clarke, not Petula Clarke. Mm-hmm. And he said, anyways, I've written a film for you. And he began to tell me then about the storyline. And to begin with, I wanted to play the romantic lead, the one who gets the fella and completes the story, which is, well, Alexandra Pick played Elaine. And I said to our Frank, oh, can't I play Elaine? He said, no, you're the chicken stuffer. I said, I don't want to be the chicken stuffer. He said, Margie, he said, that's the best part. He said, it ends on your face. So that's how we first started it. And Frank sent that script off to every TV studio, film studios in Britain at the time.
And Frank's your brother.
Yeah,
but he was a writer at the time for Brookside, is that right?
He was writing for... No.
Was that after the film?
That come after. Frank, when he wrote a letter to Brezhnev, it was the first thing he'd ever wrote.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. He'd never written anything else. And he sent it round the industry, and it was like no room at the inn. You know, no one wanted to take it on board. And because then the politics of that Russian phobia had really started to kick in.
It's still here.
It's worse.
It hasn't got away.
It's worse now.
Well, we can deal with that later because there's a really interesting idea about how it's flipped. You know, we'll come back to that though.
But yet, in them days, in the 80s, you had like Kenny Everett saying, bomb them, you know, and it was really extreme, the language, and yet we were in bed with them. And so that's what made it political. There wasn't a political dialogue in it as such, but because we crossed the big divide. And it's a classic story of Romeo and Juliet. There's nothing new under the sun, is there? You know, so...
But it wasn't just that. I mean, that was like the front plot was this like classic love story, this classic romance. But it was the backdrop.
The two
it wasn't just like, this is Liverpool, North England in the 1980s. This is who we are. This is what we're about. This is a cultural expression. It was also the political backdrop as well. So it was multi-layered, even though it may not meant to have been. It really was, and it kind of, I think that's what made it hit a chord in the national consciousness, because it was talking about like big themes of. It was British government at the time, wasn't it? Right? It was against the whole idea of what the British government were doing with the Cold War, right? And it was trying to present an idea about like, well, the Russians are just like us too.
And it took them 70 years to get rid of communism.
Yeah.
And that breakthrough was really powerful.
But do you think that was one of the reasons why it was rejected by so many kind of traditional funding sources for the film? Because in England, it's incredibly difficult to raise finance for a movie. Now it's incredibly difficult to raise finance for a movie. You have to go through many gatekeepers in order to access the cash. And those gatekeepers kind of, decide whether that film fits in with the current narrative or not. Or, that's how they control the narrative. But with Brezhnev, that was kind of very much against the grain at the time. Well, and the British film industry at that point in 1985 was on its knees. There was no movies. There was no movie culture.
No Liverpool Film Office. There was only a tourist board, no film office. But it was divine providence. And Liverpool was asked to tell the time to the world. And we weren't really aware of that you were going forward with such a powerful message. But when we went and we did it abroad, we went to different places to show it. We was at Cannes, and
but before we get to there, tell me more about so you pushed the script around. Frank pushed the script around. It didn't really get anywhere.
Brookside.
Yeah.
He sent it to Brookside.
To Phil Redmond.
And Phil Redmond said, he's a good writer. I'll get him. I don't want to know that project, but I'll get him on board to write Brookside. So Frank went in then. Into Brookside.
Brookside, by the way, anyone that doesn't know, was like the Liverpool soap opera in the 80s and the 90s. It's a classic now, but it was a bit of a caricature back then.
Well, Frank was writing all the controversial stuff. The band, they had a band, the Bomb March, something like that. I was in it. He put me in it. I was skint at the time, and our Frank said, I've got a terrible lecky bill. He said, don't worry, I'll write you into Brookside. And so he did. He wrote me in for 3 episodes. And Alexandra Pig, she was our friend. She was your babysitter. Yeah. And she was only 16 then. She was very, very young. So attractive. Winsome, the girl next door. She just looked amazing. And then she was part of the team because this was like a collective. You had Chris Bernard.
Who was the director?
Who was the director, yeah. And he'd never really directed anything before. He'd done some plays.
What a gig.
Yeah,
what
it
a gig.
Was a great gig.
Yeah.
And the same with everyone who worked on that film. Filmmaking is about sharing your assets. Every individual who's working in that team is all bringing something that they're particularly an expert at or special at.
It's a truly collaborative art, isn't it? Because you can't make it on your own. You need a team of people in order to be able to realise your vision. And those team of people all have to be on the same page and working together. And it's like going to war.
Well, I used to see it as a marathon race. You had to have that level of endurance. But I love working ensemble. There's nothing to beat working with other people.
But there was a ton of people on that project, not just the cast, but also the crew.
Who went on to do
who also had their first break.
Which one?
It was with Brezhnev.
I know. You remember that director? I can't remember.
No. So there's like Chris Bernard and all the other crew that worked on it. That was like the genesis of the Liverpool film industry that went on and on and on after that.
And the security.
Yeah, Keith the Thief. but anyway, so you tried to get the funding, and then tell us a story about how you discovered and found Charlie Castleton, who became the benefactor of the film.
That's where God steps in, see, where he puts people together with other people. And Charlie Castleton, he's got a sister called, why has her name gone out my head? But anyway,
Fiona.
Fiona, thanks, Lawrence. Charlie Castleton and his sister, they were like a upper middle class version of me and our Frank. Yeah?
Yeah.
They were really close to each other. They'd inherited a load of dough. Their family fortune came from
toilets, wasn't it?
No, back boilers.
I thought it was the Victorian toilets.
No. They'd invented back boilers. Everyone had one. Everyone had one in the back kitchen. And at the time, I read about. I've always been a ferocious reader. I don't watch things so much as I like reading. And I read, I think it was in the Observer on Sunday, and they did a piece on the Castleton family because their family were the first ones to give out shares to the workforce, right? And you had Thatcherism at the time saying, selling everything off. Mm-hmm. And yet these were keying into the workforce. And I thought, that's an incredible family. Well, it was the same family, so I'd already was familiar with them. And it was Fiona at first. Frank was living in
London.
No, we were in Liverpool and we was on Arkwright Street, and there was a big tower block there, and Frank was squatting in there with a big gang of his mates, and he gets a phone call, and someone says to him, "Can you put up a friend of mine for the night?" And Frank said, "Who?" They said, "Her name's Fiona, and she's got 2 dogs, and they're on homeopathic dog food." No one had ever heard of homeopathic anything, never mind dogs that were on dog food. But anyway, she turned up, and this flat, you know what I mean, it was mintified, scruffy, and no one had any money. They were rolling up stumps out the ashtray, and so she comes in and she says, they give her fantastic hospitality. But
she was from a wealthy family, right?
Yeah, but she
wanted to rough it with the real people, right?
And she never cracked on that she was a millionaire.
And she was squatting with everyone in Liverpool, yeah.
So there was a couple of clues. One clue was she had a bar of chocolate like that. And this was in the early 80s, before those great big bars of chocolate come out.
The chocolate was a luxury. Yeah.
And she had a cob of pot as big as your hand. But anyway, she was so enamoured with this hospitality that we took her to the boat. We stayed up all night with her.
To the ferry.
Took her to the ferry, Liverpool, because she was going over to the Isle of Man. And a tax haven, innit? So we brings her there, we waves her off, and when we goes back home, Frank gets another phone call telling him that she's a millionaire.
Ka-ching.
And he thought, I've let her slip through the fingers. Well, she sent a letter to Frank saying, "You were looked after me so well, why don't you come and stay over in the Isle of Man with all of your friends for a week?" Well, everyone was on the dole. No one could afford to go to the Isle of Man. So they come up with this idea for us all to pool our dole money.
Because Liverpool at that moment in time was like utterly deprived. It was one of the poorest areas in the whole of Europe. Right? It wasn't like, you were doing anything that was unusual. It was just like really at the... the floor. The docks, wasn't it? Yeah, and it was just like it was a broken city almost at that period. Yeah.
But so anyway, Frank goes over with all this money we've collected for him to go, And
so you did a whip round to get Frank to the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man, by the way, is only like a short trip, isn't it, from Liverpool? It's a ferry, yeah.
So off he goes, and he had to impress her father, because the father was going to be shooting the gold diggers. So Frank took the father for dinner. Frank took the father for dinner, and Frank paid the bill.
Yeah.
He said, but I went to the toilet, he said, and I had to count out brown money, which is 2 pence pieces, to finish the bill off. And they went back to their house, and he gave them the script. And so these were a capitalistic family, yeah, who'd never invested in anything like that before. And only because of the son and the daughter, they seen that this had legs. And they said, how much money do you want to our Frank? Our Frank just plucked the son out of the air. £50,000, please. At the time, I was in the hairdressers, Chris Sheard's hairdressers. I was in there getting my hair done. Jamie Reid standing next to me. And Chris Sheard, who'd never met Jamie Reid before, took one look at his fringe, and his fringe was like a pilchard stuck to his gob, and he lifted the fringe up, chopped it off, threw it out the window. Then in walked our Frank, and he said, Margie, I'm going to make you a star.
Wow.
And he did.
And he did.
Yeah.
It was true. It happened, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so you got the money, right? Which was an amazing feat in and of itself, a fairy tale in and of itself. You know, going fronting the multimillionaires and walking out with the dough, walking out with the dough. So that kind of kicked off what was to be life changing for you,
Absolutely.
for our family, right? Not
Yeah,
just
but
you.
I've been practicing for it for years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it didn't just come from nowhere,
No,
of
that was
course.
Margox,
Yeah, yeah.
wasn't it?
You were already on the television, weren't
Yeah.
you? In the Granada Reports,
Yeah.
What's On. Yeah, that was kind of where you'd
That was
already made your
fantastic
name.
training.
Yeah, so it was like it was on its way. It was coming
Yeah,
anyway. And then you got the finance. So the film went into production. Do you remember much about the production of the movie? Because I've got vague memories. And
You were only about 9, weren't
nine,
you,
same
Lawrence?
age as Donnie.
Yeah, yeah.
The same age as Donnie, yeah. And I remember a couple
And
of
you were
times
there a
going
lot
onto
on
the
the set.
set. And I remember meeting Alfred Molina in, it was around Sefton Park. You know that scene where it's at Sefton Park and
Well, some
Frank
great
turns up as an
pictures.
extra.
Yeah.
I remember that scene being filmed there. I remember meeting Fred Molina, and there was a picture of me and him on the Polaroid, right? And, you know, he went on to amazing things, Fred Molina, but at the time he was relatively an unknown actor.
No, we done, what's that one? Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, but even in Raiders, he's kind of like a bit part.
Oh, right.
But that was a a breakthrough for him. He's in the beginning, the opening sequence where Indy is doing the whole thing where he's weighing up the sand and the idol, right? And he rips him off at the beginning. But it's a featured extra. But then again, he's
Yeah.
he's remembered
It's
for
great
it.
to work.
Yeah, but so he was cast. Peter Firth was cast, who was a kind of a relatively well-known theatre actor at the time, wasn't
Well, our Frank was best mates with Peter's wife, Maya Sendall.
he? Okay.
Fabulous actress herself. And through that connection and relationship, he got to meet Peter. And he went with Peter. Peter was in Frank's flat in Liverpool 8. And he said, I'm in a movie that's on the cinema in Liverpool right now. He said, do you want to come and see it with me? And he said, Frank said, what's the movie? He said, Equus. And
And this was Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He took Frank to see Equus. If Peter's in Equus, he was absolutely stunning. And from there, Peter thought that we were just going to do...
But he was the name on the bill, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Peter Firth
but
was
he
the
thought
name on the
we
bill.
were just running around with a Super 8 camera.
Yeah.
And we were a bunch like students.
Yeah, well, we weren't even students, were you?
No.
Those scallies were 50 grand.
That wasn't bad, was it?
No, it was amazing. But so you get the dough. Film goes into production. How did you get the production company, the producers, the people who were going to manage the money, make the film happen? Because that was, what were they called?
Palace Pictures.
Palace Pictures, right. And who was that, Peter Powell?
No, Nick
Powell. Nick Powell.
Lord of mercy on him. Another great, absolutely...
But they had a long track record after that, didn't he, Palace Pictures?
Yeah, Palace Pictures. they put the money into the post-production.
Okay.
Yeah.
But did you get more than the 50 grand?
No, we got the 50 grand and then to put it in the can.
Yeah.
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 Then the post-production, Palace Pictures and Channel 4 paid for.
Okay, right, okay.
Yeah. Which was, they got the distribution deal. But Palace Pictures, Brezhnev made 14 million.
Well, no, before we get to that, right, but that's a bit further down the line. So you bring the production company on board, you get a deal with Channel 4, Palace Pictures, film goes into production. Chris Bernard is the director, which I reckon must have been a little bit of a fight to get him to be the director because he was unknown, hadn't directed a movie before.
They didn't want him to be the director to begin with, but Frank
Fought for him
said no way, because we'd done it as a play first.
So my babysitter, my uncle Frank, Chris, who was also one of the babysitters, right, all making a movie, and so all that team were brought together, and you cast Alexandra Pig as the lead, as Elaine. That must have been a bit of a challenge as well because she was an unknown too. Yeah,
and she was a lot younger than me, and I used to feel a little bit sensitive about that because I was 29 when I made Brezhnev. Sandra was only 18, and so I felt like the older woman of stature. But it worked out really well. The two of us, I love her intensity of it. She's very passionate, and I love her colour, that gorgeous dark eyes, fabulous looking. And you put that next to me, and I'm blonde. It's a winning image, yeah. And it was hard in some ways to...
Do you remember much about, like, it was a long time ago now, isn't it, right? Do you remember much about, like, the pre-production and, the film going into production and filming and the actual scenes? Do you remember much about that? Or is it vague wisps now?
No, I can remember certain things about it quite well. Like, when we went into production, there was no money.
Yeah.
And so
Everyone worked for free.
Everyone worked for free.
Yeah.
And there was no canteen.
Yeah.
My mother...
Pure guerrilla filmmaking.
Yeah.
Before guerrilla filmmaking even existed.
Yeah, my mother made the sandwiches.
Yeah.
She came down on the set and made all the tea and, corned beef butties. There was no expenses. That didn't exist. And it was... I remember a particular scene, the scenes with filming on Dale Street, where I'm up the alleyway, Leather Lane, and it was bitter cold. It was November, and I'm out there, and I'm only wearing the dress. I haven't got a coat, and Alexandra Pig's character's got a coat.
Yeah.
And she had all of the crew fussing around her. I can't do that. I don't like that, no. I go quiet when I'm on set. I can't speak to anyone.
Which is not like you.
I know, but it's the focus.
So why do you have to do that then? Is that the way that you kind of close down the internal chatter that's going on? Is that your way to prepare for what you have to do and deliver the role?
Marshal your forces.
Yeah.
Bring all your focus.
Because I guess this was the biggest thing you've done at that moment in time, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was, I mean, I'd done plays and that, and I'd worked with Ken Campbell.
This was a different kettle of fish.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I wasn't trained.
No.
I was an instinctive actress. And, what I learned how to do with the help of Chris Bernard was to expand the performance, to use your instincts more. So that last scene, the very last scene, the end scene, my sister passed away with cancer when she was 16. And that was the first letter that was ever written to Russia. My sister was dying of cancer. I was only 11. And Frank wrote a letter, my mum wrote a letter to Russia to ask did they have a cure.
Because didn't they have some kind of special treatment at the time or something?
Yeah, and they said that Kathleen wasn't suitable for this treatment. They answered me, ma'am. And she took that letter, I'll never forget it. It was all in Russian. And she had to go to Brookfield School, who had a Russian department, and they translated the letter. So that was the very first letter to Brezhnev.
Well, that sounds to me like where the idea came from, largely, or to some degree.
That might have subconsciously been in there. But, so the very end scene, You know, actors do use emotional memory and recall. And that very end scene where I have to shed a tear. How do you do that without...
I gotta love you.
yeah, I gotta love you. But how do you do that without someone putting an onion stick underneath?
So
your
how
eye?
did you do it?
I recalled all of that tragedy and pain of what my sister went through and the loss, because when you have that happen in your family and you're young, and I'm from 10, there was 10 of us, 10 kids, it's like a nuclear bomb goes off and the fallout of it lasts forever. So that, and, you know, Liverpool City Council wouldn't allow us to film in Liverpool Airport.
Yeah, but they hadn't had any experience of using Liverpool as a location at that point, really, had they? This was the first film that used Liverpool. I mean, there was a few before that, but this was the one that kind of made them think that there is something going on here.
Well, they weren't, you know...
Prepped for it.
You know, they weren't clued in.
Yeah.
Manchester Airport said yeah to us. So
you used Manchester for the end scene?
Yeah. And that's where my sister Kathleen, she left from Manchester Airport to go to Lourdes to look for a cure, you know, and it wasn't hard for me to recall all that and to bring it forward in the film. Chris Bernard helped me with that. You know, it's what you do when you set up before you speak, you know, when you're waiting in the wings. Yeah, but some fabulous...
So amazing production, some great stories, amazing time. The film was made, put in the can. It was, you know, edited and released. Now, did you expect the storm that it created? Because I remember at the time, well, I don't know whether I remember at the time, but I know that in 1985, 86, and these may be, you know, not completely accurate, but there's something like 5 or 6 films made that year. Right, and 2 of them was Leslie Brezhnev and My Beautiful Laundrette, which had Daniel Day-Lewis in.
That's right.
And that was like the establishment film, wasn't it? That My Beautiful Laundrette. Yeah. Right, and that, you know, of those 5 films that were made in Britain that time, it was Leslie Brezhnev and My Beautiful Laundrette. And then it became like a competition for awards between those 2 movies. And all of a sudden, you know, you're catapulted from being a chicken stuffer to, you know, a movie star, a literal movie star in which you're traveling not only the country but the world promoting the movie and receiving awards for the portrayal that you all did.
It
and
won awards everywhere.
It won awards everywhere, right? But it was a real breakthrough moment in like normal common people having some say over the narrative, over the national narrative. Because it was a very controversial film at its time, because it was against the British state and it was kind of promoting communism to some degree, or promoting Russia.
Yeah,
No, but it was like,
Russia.
it wasn't that, it was more like...
Communism was done to the Russians.
No, but it was more like it was questioning the validity of the Cold War, right? And how that was being used as a you know, a club to beat us with in order for the British state to do what it wanted to do, right? So it was against the narrative, which is kind of picked up in the movie, where when Teresa is wanting to leave to go to Russia, she has to go and meet the Foreign Office. What's his name? The guy who plays that part. He had a big career. But anyway, the whole scene is about the British state trying to persuade her not to go, using the propaganda of the time against her, right? But so it was controversial.
Well, they switched it around. There's a great moment in the film, isn't he, where Ken Campbell, who was the journalist, plays it spot on. And he says, you're going to Russia? What about all these food shortages?
Yeah.
And she says, food shortages? Hey, lad, you go and have a look in any back kitchen around here and you'll soon see food shortages.
But that was the point, wasn't it?
The
It was like,
turnaround.
it was like, you know, there's enough problems in our own country without, you know, trying to use that as a you know, axe to beat us with.
It
You
was
know?
making out that we were a well-fed
Yeah.
nation and we weren't.
No, yeah.
Not at that
He
time.
was such a slime ball in that film, wasn't he, Ken Campbell?
I like Ken Campbell.
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
good. He was a good laugh. Yeah, but
So tell me about, you know, the movie came out and you got this flush of success, and one of the best photographs, and I wish I could get it up now quickly, but if you Google Margi Clarke and George Harrison.
Oh, it's a lovely picture.
Right, it's one of the best. I think it's one of the best images that captures that period. Is when, you know, this flush of success from this gang from Liverpool who just burst through the gates, take control of the narrative for that moment, are getting showered with awards, right? And the next thing, you're on stage with George Harrison, right? Because Handmade Films was also winning awards at the time, and there's a picture of you next to George Harrison.
Well, with George
Harrison, and that for me was like the pinnacle of it all, right?
When I was a kid and the Beatles come out and that, I always went from John Lennon to George Harrison. I went from one to the other. And when I run away with Jamie Reid, we went to Paris. And there was a record I used to play incessantly, and it was a George Harrison track, Within You, Without You. And on the night of that big awards, it was the Evening Standard Awards, I think it was. And there was George. And my nerves went because, you know, you just shake, don't you? You don't know what you're going to say. And I said, oh, George, I said, the reason why I wanted to be famous, I said, was to sleep with John Lennon. And he went, I'm famous too, you know. But yeah. And
not quite John Lennon, though.
No, he said, don't sell out. I said, what advice have you got for me? He said, never sell out. He said, never forget where you've come from. And so that was really good advice to me. And I don't think I did forget. I don't think that the fame affected me in that way. You know, I went the other way wherever I could. Like the premiere for Lester Brezhnev, I bunked half of Kirby through the toilets so they could watch the film too. You know?
Where was the premiere? I can't remember the premiere.
Kirby Suite.
Kirby Suite.
You've seen nothing like it. All the ale was free. Our Frank had insisted that the premiere was in Kirby because they wanted us to have it in Soho. Yeah. And Frank said, no, we're not having any of that. He said, it's got to be in Kirby. He said, okay. Cheese and wine. Frank said, you're kidding on me.
Kirby, for those that don't know, is like an overspill town outside of Liverpool,
like
right?
Like a gulag.
Like a gulag in its own sense. Isn't it? Maybe that's where it was coming from. And Kirby Suite was the local function hall in Kirby, right? Where you had local bands on and less of the Brezhnev.
They didn't even have proper seating.
No.
Was, you know. But in any case, all the stars turned up. They all came to Kirby. They were happy to. And when all of the credits started flying on the screen, the audience were up on their feet, shouting and hollering, and they were just stunned by it.
What a moment.
And afterwards, we had a party in my mum's house up in Kirby, little 4 bedrooms house. Well, there was 500 people in my mother's house. Right? It spilled out into the neighbour's house. It was one of the best parties ever in Kirby. People still talk about that premiere now today.
But so it was an amazing moment for you, amazing moment for our family, amazing moment for Liverpool in a sense, because it was another time that the city punched through, you know, against some of the hard shit that's forced upon us. And
well, Liverpool's like the death and resurrection show, isn't it? The minute you say it's over, it springs back to life and butts you in the gob. Like Liverpool FC, how many moments have they had of that? You know, it's part of the character of the town, you know. And all that partying, we partied for 150 years because that's when it started, when they built the dock.
Yeah.
So you had all those ships coming in.
And everyone was trying to sell the wares to the dockers who'd been away for the sailors who'd been on the ocean for months on end, and they arrive in Liverpool and all the girls are going, come on, let's party.
Well, every sailor had a story to tell about Liverpool, and this is every sailor around the world. And when the ship was in, we partied, we were like that. When the ship was out, the town collapsed. So it went on the tides.
So what happened after the film came out, and it was more of a usual story really of how the big cheeses make sure that all of the creamers, you know, pushed off in their direction. There was never really any money made from it, really, was there? There was a
they made
few
a lot
quid.
of money.
No, they did.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Is the people who made the movie struggled to get a fair slice of the pie, and it was a bit of a, I remember at the time it was a bit of a struggle to ensure that.
It's very painful because we got the crumbs to a feast. We provided.
Of course.
And so,
in some ways, that was the price you had to pay to get
the price, yeah. And the Palace Pictures, they made that movie Absolute Beginners.
Yeah.
Well, that cost 12 million. Well, Brezhnev paid for it, and it never made a bean. So that's what happened there. And Channel 4, they didn't have to make too much investment for the film, and they owned it for 20 years, so they could show that film over and over and over and over again. We never got a penny. No royalties, none. But as you say, that was the price.
That was the price to play, wasn't it?
For us doing the
yeah. What an amazing opportunity it was, and you got an awesome career on the back of it. That was what launched it, wasn't it? And it was a really great period, and we've had some fun times since. We're talking a little bit about, other times that we've had fun, and I remember that whole idea of communism and stuff like that. You became which I thought was really interesting. I didn't really understand this till later on in my life. You became a European auteur actress. You got cast by some of the most artistic European directors.
Aki Kaurismäki?
Wasn't just Aki Kaurismäki though. It was Mika Kaurismäki, and it was one in Spain and Cadiz. There was another one there.
Oh yeah, Philip Gardel.
Yeah, so you got these parts in Europe where you're playing Parisians and French and Spanish and German.
Get a part in England.
But yet you're filling the leading roles in these crazy auteur films. And I remember you were doing a movie for Mika Kaurismäki, the brother of Aki Kaurismäki, the most famous film director from Finland. And if you know anything about cinema, he's like he's one of the directors that appears in the auteur oeuvre. He made what was it, Leningrad Cowboys Go to America, right?
Great film.
Yeah, so if you're into cinema, you know who Aki Kaurismäki is. And I hired the contract killer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was in that movie as an extra. I was an extra as the paper boy. I was the paper boy.
Tomorrow's News Today.
But you'd also got a film with Mika Kaurismäki. And what was that called? Do you remember?
Helsinki,
Napoli. Right. And I remember you were filming in West Berlin.
Lawrence, I need to go.
Okay, hang on a sec. We'll just hang on. So, there we go. That's the beauty of live TV. So, if you've got any questions for Mum, please post them in the chat, because we'll be finishing this conversation in the next 15, 20 minutes, and then I'll put some questions out for you. If you've got any, let me know, great. But if not, no worries. So this is what it's like being Margi Clarke's son. She just gets up in the middle and does whatever she needs to do. But I've always wanted to ask her about Brezhnev, because we've never really had this conversation in full. We've had, little spurts here and there. And it was such an inspiration to me and others, is that you don't need to be part of the in crowd, the upper classes, the middle classes, or whatever. You can be from wherever you want, and you can achieve whatever you want to do. You've just got to have the balls big enough to get out there and do it. And the planets aligned for my mum and Frank and everyone at the time, and it was a brilliant moment in history that they were able to capitalize on it.
Just press play. So I was just filling the space there. So you were doing a film in Berlin with Mika Kaurismäki, and I remember you said you wanted. Just get a little nut one of them.
This is a crime, by the way.
The taste
this is a crime, by the way, to mix single malt with a coffee. But there we go. So you were doing a movie in
Cadiz.
No. It was in West Berlin in the late 1980s.
Yeah,
and I
that's
got
Helsinki
invited
now,
over
yeah.
to come and hang out with you. I was only 12 at the time.
The crew loved you, didn't
Yeah,
you?
but I remember going over and we stayed in the Kempinski Hotel. And the
Great
Kempinski
hotel.
Hotel was like the most grand hotel in
Yeah.
West Berlin at the time. And this is before the wall came down. This is when that divide was still in Germany.
Yeah.
And I get to go over there and,
We went on a big demonstration together.
in Germany.
Yeah.
I can't remember that.
We went on a demonstration, and the demonstration was about bringing down the wall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got in touch with the BBC, and I said, look, this wall's going to come down.
Any moment it's on its way down.
And they thought I was blagging.
But I remember going over there and then hanging out with you on the set, meeting Mika Kaurismäki and watching the film being made, and it was great and I loved it. And you said to me, you went, do you want to go to East Berlin?
Yeah, scary.
Right? Do you want to go through Checkpoint Charlie? Right? And Checkpoint Charlie at the time was very infamous, wasn't it? As like a serious check. Yeah, it was a serious checkpoint between West and East Berlin.
Yeah.
Right, and like, a lot of people got killed trying to cross that border during that period.
Risky.
And you went, you want to go across? I said, okay, yeah. So I remember going through Checkpoint Charlie with you, and it was probably like one of the scariest things that in my life at that point, going through, and there's all these like Eastern European men frowning at machine guns, and it was like checking your passport 50 times. And I remember us going through and going from one side of West Berlin, which was just pure
full of capitalist.
but not in a bad way so much. It was like the culture of Europe was within West Germany, within West Berlin, and then we crosses the border into East Berlin, and it was like not going into another country. It was like going into another world. It was like everything you can imagine that Soviet architecture could be. All of like the weird, brutalist, like straight lines and, these geometric shapes. But most interesting was the fact that all the cars were the same. All of the cars were the same.
It was
like,
barren, wasn't it?
They were all like larders or something. But I always remember it being 12 going, look at all the cars, they're the same. And then we hung around for a little bit, went for a lunch.
A canteen.
Went to some kind of canteen.
Like
I remember it
canteen.
was a Soviet canteen. And you made me a packed lunch, probably from what you'd swiped at the breakfast in the Kempinski, right?
That I got in my handbag.
And I had this like packed lunch, opens it, gets me meat out, and then gets the fruit out, starts unpacking the fruit. And then this old woman who was sitting facing us, like a babushka they called, aren't they, right? I was unpacking the fruit, and she was staring at it. And you said to her, is everything okay? And she went, I haven't seen fruit like that for 30 years. Right? And I handed over, we handed over the fruit, and went, there you go, it's yours. And that stuck with me to this day, is how, like, how different it was in East Berlin.
There was no ads.
There was no ads.
Yeah. There was no flashing lights and, that big sell from capitalism. But a part of Berlin, which was fascinating to me, was when I arrived there to do that film, they sent the driver to pick me up. And as we were going through Berlin, I was going, oh, that's a nice building. And he was going, yeah, that's from the East. And everywhere I liked, it was from the East, because what they did, when it got bombed, West Berlin then went extremely modern. Yeah, they went,
they got rebuilt, didn't they?
That got rebuilt, and they made it really modern, Bauhaus and all like that. And then East Berlin, what they did was they took the rubble of the Gothic architecture and put it back up again. I said, you kidding?
You rebuilt it.
They rebuilt it, yeah, with the same stone. Whereas, they didn't do that in the West. They went totally modern. So I thought that was incredible. And when I went there, I thought that the Berlin Wall was a wall that went like that, right, straight across. No. The West was an island in the middle
of East Germany. Yeah, all right.
And so the wall went right.
Yeah.
That blew me mind.
You had to fly into West Berlin, didn't you? And that was within East Germany.
It really blew me mind because I had this different idea of the geography of it. I liked the Germans. I thought they were lovely people. And when I was in the Kempinski, I loved it in there. It was a fabulous hotel. I think it's been up 100 and odd years or something. Beautiful. And I just had such a good time. And from there, I got another film part in Arfaki, you know. Got one with his brother, as you mentioned. Yeah, so I was privileged to play, wasn't I, Lawrence?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a really great time. But so what's happening, before we wrap this up?
Yeah.
What's happening now with Brezhnev? Isn't there like some...
It's going to be on the Royal Court.
It's on the Royal Court as a play.
Yeah.
Now, so it's on the Royal Court as a play. Now, for me, right, and obviously I'm biased, but I think I'm right, and this is no disrespect to any of the other actors in Leicester to Brezhnev, but the only person anyone remembers about Leicester to Brezhnev is you, right, and is your character. Right, the others, great stuff, but you know you're the one that has the lasting legacy of that movie in my view. Right, and I think you know that's something that will play out well in the Royal Court if they play the cards right. And what's your take on that?
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great for younger people to have a little crack at it, you know?
Yeah.
And the Royal Court, it's got a great tradition of bringing new plays to Liverpool. And in a way, a Leicester to Brezhnev goes full circle because it started as a play.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And Alan Gill is going to be involved in the music because it's such an important part that, you know, the other element to the film, the other star is his music. So I'm looking forward to watching other people do it and what they bring to it.
Have they cast it yet?
Not yet.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on whether they casted your character?
I'll be jealous. Jealous legs.
Well, you know, they're big shoes to fill for sure. And you know, it's been great chatting to you, Mum. I really enjoyed it. But maybe we can do it again next week because you're here for 3 weeks and it's a live stream and we can just do whatever we want. So before we finish, seeing as the theme is about like just getting up and doing it, what's your like message to people who might watch this and you know they're having any doubts about themselves and things, and you know to get out there and take control of the world?
Well, I always think that if you write something and you get a little bit of money, say £500 to hire a theatre for the night, that's all it costs. It's, well, I know in Liverpool it's really reasonable. You can put your play on then. And if you invite producers to see it, they're going to say, this person's got some nous. They've actually put it on themselves.
Yeah.
So I always advise people to approach it like that, is to go and try and produce it yourself.
Okay.
There's no one else. You've got to be Igor, 100%. The engine.
Yeah, no one else is going to do it. You've got to do it.
No one's going to pull your truck. Yeah. You've got to pull it yourself.
Yeah. Okay, well, awesome chatting to you. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And we're going to call it an evening then and finish off with a final tune. And see you this time next week, 8 o'clock every Sunday. Hopefully my mum will come back on for another session. I don't know what we'll talk about next time, but we'll think of something, I'm sure, right? Okay, until next time, see you soon, bye.
See you later.
Só danço samba, vai, 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 vai. Só danço samba, vai. Só danço samba, vai, 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 vai. Só danço samba, vai. Já dancei o twist até demais, mas não sei, me cansei do calypso ao tchá-tchá-tchá. Só danço samba, vai, 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 vai. Só danço samba, vai. Mm-hmm.